The final blow. The battlefield was silent. Only moments ago, the mighty Zarkan Empire had unleashed its full power against the human fleet. They had fired every weapon, launched every fighter, and used every strategy they had mastered over centuries of war. And yet, nothing worked. Now, the once proud Imperial fleet floated in ruins. Debris from broken warships drifted through space, the shattered remains of what was supposed to be an unbeatable armada. Fires burned in the void, consuming oxygen from wrecked Imperial vessels. Thousands of soldiers screamed for help, but no one was left to save them. Only one warship remained intact, the Emperor's flagship, the Tyrant's Wrath. Inside, Admiral Kordath gripped the command panel, his hands shaking. His officers were gone. Some had been vaporized when the bridge was hit. Others had fled in escape pods, abandoning their posts in terror. Only a few remained, staring at their monitors in stunned silence. "This isn't possible," Kordath whispered, his throat dry. They were supposed to be weak. But they weren't weak. The humans had hidden their true power until it was too late. Now, they were here. A deep alarm echoed through the ship. Something was approaching. "Admiral," one of the remaining officers gasped. "The human flagship, it's coming straight for us." Kordath turned to the screen. The human command ship, sleek and dark, moved without sound, without hesitation. It slid through the wreckage like a predator, untouched by the destruction it had caused. It was hunting them now. The officer swallowed hard. "They're hailing us." For the first time in his life, Admiral Kordath felt fear. The arrival of the enemy. A cold voice echoed through the bridge. "This is Captain Elias Carter of the United Terran Fleet," the voice said. "Your empire has fallen. Surrender now." Kordath clenched his fists. Surrender. The Zarkan Empire had never surrendered to anyone. They had crushed countless species, burned entire worlds, and ruled the galaxy with an iron grip. And now these humans, these insignificant newcomers, were demanding their surrender. His pride screamed at him to fight to the last breath. But his instincts whispered the truth. Fighting was useless. He looked at the screen again. The human ship had stopped just outside of firing range. They could have destroyed him already. They hadn't. That meant they wanted something. With a deep breath, Kordath pressed a button on the control panel. "This is Admiral Kordath. I wish to negotiate." There was a pause. Then the screen flickered, and for the first time, Kordath saw the face of his enemy. Face to face with humanity, Captain Elias Carter looked nothing like a monster. The human commander was calm, his face unreadable. There was no hatred in his eyes, no rage, just certainty. Kordath had seen that look before, but never on a human. That was the look of a predator staring at its prey. "You wish to negotiate," Carter said, tilting his head. Kordath straightened his uniform. "Yes. The Empire. We can discuss terms. Peace. A ceasefire." Carter didn't laugh. He didn't even smirk. That made it worse. "You don't understand, Admiral," Carter said slowly. "This isn't a war anymore. It's already over." The words hit Kordath like a hammer. He tried to argue, tried to think of something clever to say, but there was nothing left. He had lost. His fleet was gone. His soldiers were dead. His weapons were useless. And now, the humans had him cornered, helpless, defeated. Kordath's breath was heavy. He knew what would happen next. The humans would fire one last shot, and the Zarkan Empire's reign would end. But Carter surprised him. "I'm giving you one last choice, Admiral," the human captain said. "Surrender completely, or face extinction." Kordath's mouth went dry. Extinction. That word had never been used against the Empire before. They had wiped out others, but never had they been on the other side of it. He wanted to refuse. He wanted to fight. But what was left to fight with? For the first time in his long career, Admiral Kordath lowered his head. "We surrender." The final shot. The moment the words left his mouth, Carter nodded. "Wise choice," the human captain said. The screen cut out. A second later, the human ship fired. But it didn't destroy them. The tyrant's wrath shook violently as its weapon systems were completely disabled. The engines went dark. The shields collapsed. Every piece of Imperial technology shut down in an instant. Kordath collapsed into his chair. It was over. The Zarkan Empire had fallen. Across the galaxy, planets once under Imperial rule watched the battle's outcome in stunned silence. The news spread like wildfire. The Empire has lost. The humans have won. And as the last Imperial warship floated powerless in space, the truth became clear. Humanity was now the most feared force in the galaxy. The aftermath. Kordath sat in the dark, staring at his reflection on the screen. A message blinked on his monitor. One last transmission from the human fleet. "This was your only warning." And then the humans vanished into the stars, leaving only wreckage behind. The Zarkan Empire, once unstoppable, had been brought to its knees by the very species they had mocked. And in that moment, Kordath realized something. The galaxy had changed forever. The galaxy learns to fear humanity. The news spread like wildfire. From the farthest outposts to the grandest Imperial cities, whispers filled the air. The Zarkan Empire had fallen. Not in a long, drawn-out war. Not in a desperate last stand. But in one decisive battle, crushed by an enemy they had mocked. And that enemy was humanity. For centuries, the Zarkan Empire had ruled through fear. Planets surrendered before battles even began. Races fell in line without resistance, knowing the cost of defying their overlords. Now, for the first time, they were the ones afraid. The Emperor's shame. In the grand halls of Zarkan Prime, the heart of the Empire, Emperor Vorthax Xi sat on his throne, his claws gripping the golden armrests. His face was pale. His hands trembled. A week ago, he had laughed when he heard of the human fleet. Now his laughter was gone. The battle reports played in silence before him, repeating the same horrifying truth. The Imperial fleet, gone. The Empire's finest warriors, defeated. The human fleet, untouched. Vorthax clenched his jaw as his advisors trembled in his presence. "The humans," he muttered. "What are they?" None of his advisors dared to answer. Then a new report arrived. A message from one of the surviving Imperial governors. "The people are afraid, my Emperor," the governor said, his voice shaky. They are questioning our rule." Vorthax slammed his fist onto the throne. "Cowards, we still control half the galaxy." The governor hesitated. Not for long. The words made Vorthax freeze. "Other worlds have already started rebelling," the governor continued. "The humans didn't just defeat our fleet. They shattered our image. No one fears us anymore." Vorthax's breathing grew heavy. Fear was the foundation of his empire. If that was gone, then so was his rule. The Council of Worlds reacts. Far from the Empire, the Galactic Council of Worlds, a coalition of powerful alien races, gathered for an emergency meeting. They had all watched the battle. They had all seen the impossible. Humanity had done what no one else dared. A reptilian ambassador, his scales shimmering under the dim conference lights, spoke first. "The humans, they were supposed to be weak," he hissed. "Yet they crushed the greatest empire in existence." A feline-like diplomat narrowed her golden eyes. "And they left without taking over. They didn't conquer, didn't claim territory. They just left." Silence filled the chamber. An avian elder, his feathers ruffled with unease, spoke the words on everyone's mind. "That means they weren't fighting for power. They were proving a point." Everyone exchanged glances. What kind of species fights a war? Just to send a message. The broadcast that changed everything. Then, as the entire galaxy held its breath, the humans spoke again. A message was transmitted across every network, every frequency, every planet. A human general stood before the screen, calm and composed. His words were simple, but they shook the galaxy to its core. We do not seek war. We do not seek conquest. But if you threaten humanity, we will end you. The message ended. No threats, no demands, just a warning. A warning that every species in the galaxy now understood. A new power rises. From that day forward, the galaxy changed. The Zarkan Empire, once feared, became a shell of its former self. Its rulers struggled to maintain control as once loyal planets broke away, declaring independence under the protection of humanity's shadow. The Galactic Council, once dismissive of Earth, now whispered about them in hushed voices. Ambassadors debated how to approach the humans, how to ensure they never became an enemy. Even the most distant warlords and pirate factions took notice. No one wanted to test the humans now. For the first time, humanity was not seen as prey. They were seen as the apex predators of the galaxy. Final scene. A silent victory. On Earth, Captain Elias Carter stood on the bridge of his ship, gazing out at the stars. The war was over before it even began. He turned to his crew, giving a simple nod. Set course for home. The engines roared to life, and the human fleet vanished into the void, leaving behind only one undeniable truth. Humanity had arrived. And the galaxy would never be the same. The new galactic order. The fear spreads. The stars had never felt so silent. The once bustling trade routes of the Zarkan Empire were emptier than ever. Merchants, diplomats, and warlords who had once moved freely through the galaxy now hesitated. Everyone was watching Earth. Would they expand? Would they impose their rule? Would they come back? No one knew. All they knew was one thing. Humanity had won. But instead of celebrating, the galaxy lived in fear. The Empire's struggle for control. Back on Zarkan Prime, the Imperial government was in chaos. The Emperor's once loyal warlords were now fighting among themselves, each one trying to seize power. Without their mighty fleet, the Empire's rule had collapsed overnight. Worlds that had once bowed to them now refused to pay tribute. Former allies turned their backs, fearing human retaliation if they stayed close to the Empire. The once mighty Zarkan rulers were now prisoners in their own palace. One of the surviving generals, Targath Wren, clenched his fists. "We cannot let them destroy us," he growled. But no one had a plan. No one knew how to stop an enemy that had already proven they were unstoppable. For the first time in history, the Empire was not feared. They were hunted. The Council's dilemma. At the same time, the Galactic Council of Worlds met in secret. The greatest leaders of the galaxy gathered in a hidden station, discussing only one thing: humanity. They could have taken the Empire's worlds, a robotic diplomat said. But they didn't. They could have wiped us all out, a reptilian general added. But they didn't. The feline-like leader of a once neutral world narrowed her golden eyes. They didn't come to rule. They came to warn us. The room fell into silence. What did the humans want? If they didn't want to conquer, if they didn't want power, then what was their goal? A nervous voice spoke up. Perhaps they only wanted respect. The thought sent a chill through the council. Because if that was true, then humanity had earned it in the most terrifying way possible. The first attempt at contact. Meanwhile, in deep space, a single Zarkan warship moved toward Earth. It was not an invasion fleet. It carried no weapons. It carried only a diplomat. Ambassador Varish Klin, one of the last surviving members of the Imperial Court, sat stiffly in his seat as the stars streaked by. His mission was simple: beg for peace. He had seen the reports, watched the battle footage. He had heard the whispers. Do not anger the humans. Now he would be the first Zarkan to face them without a fleet behind him. His ship entered the Sol system. Earth's defenses did not activate. No warships intercepted him. No warnings were sent. But Varish could feel their eyes on him. His ship's sensors flickered. Something was there. watching, scanning, tracking. And then, a voice echoed through the ship's comms. "State your purpose." Varish swallowed hard. I come in peace." There was a long silence. Then the voice responded, "Good, then we can talk." The Zarkan ambassador exhaled in relief. It was humanity's choice now. Would they guide the galaxy, or would they remain a silent force, watching from the shadows? One thing was certain, no one would ever underestimate them again. Final message to the galaxy. Hours later, the Galactic Council received a transmission from Earth. It was brief, but it sent a message that echoed across the stars. "We are not conquerors. We are not tyrants. We do not seek war. But if you threaten humanity, you will not get a second chance." The message ended. The galaxy understood. Humanity was no longer just another race among the stars. They were the ones who had rewritten the rules of power. And in the silence that followed, one truth became clear. The age of human fear was over. The age of human dominance had begun. The shadows of humanity. The galaxy did not recover overnight. The fall of the Zarkan Empire had shattered the balance of power. Worlds once ruled by fear now stood leaderless and uncertain. The Galactic Council, once powerful, found itself struggling to maintain order. But despite the chaos, one question lingered in every mind. What will humanity do next? Would they take control? Would they enforce their will? Would they disappear into the stars as mysteriously as they had arrived? No one knew, because humanity was silent. And that silence was terrifying. The Empire's final gamble. On Zarkan Prime, Emperor Vorthak's Xi paced inside the palace war chamber. His once golden robes were now stained with sweat and dust, his eyes dark with exhaustion. He had ruled with absolute power for decades, crushing entire civilizations under his heel. But now his empire was crumbling. And the worst part, the humans hadn't even returned. They had shattered his fleet, humiliated him before the galaxy, and then left. His claws scraped against the metal floor as he turned toward General Targoth Wren, the last loyal war commander. "We cannot sit and wait like prey," the Emperor growled. "The humans may not have finished us, but if we do nothing, we will fade into nothingness." Targoth hesitated. He had fought in the battle against humanity. He had seen their ships move faster than light, stronger than physics allowed. He had seen entire battleships turn to dust in seconds. Attacking them again would be suicide. But the Emperor was desperate. He leaned forward, his golden eyes burning with one last spark of defiance. "There must be something they fear," he whispered. "Find it." The hunt for weakness. Across the remnants of the Empire, spies, scientists, and warlords began searching for humanity's secrets. They scanned ancient records. Nothing. They searched for legends about Earth. Nothing. They even captured and interrogated humans from neutral worlds. Still nothing. Every piece of information they gathered only led to more fear. The humans had advanced too quickly. Their technology was far beyond what the Empire believed possible. They had hidden their strength for decades, waiting. And then came the worst discovery of all. A scientist, shaking with fear, presented his findings to Targoth Wren. His voice trembled as he spoke. "General, the humans. They are still evolving." Targoth's eyes narrowed. "Explain." The scientist swallowed. "Their technology, their warfare, it's not static. It's not even at its peak. They are still improving." The general's heart pounded. If this was true, then the humans they had fought were only a fraction of what they could become. The scientist hesitated before adding his final chilling words. "If we attack them again, they won't just defeat us." His voice dropped to a whisper. "They will erase us. Humanity's invisible hand." Meanwhile, on Earth, humanity watched. They didn't expand their territory. They didn't demand tribute. They didn't even acknowledge the growing fear in the galaxy. They simply existed, like a predator sitting at the top of the food chain. But behind the scenes, the United Terran Command was not idle. Inside a hidden base deep beneath the mountains of Earth, Captain Elias Carter and a room full of high-ranking officers gathered for a classified meeting. A holographic map of the galaxy flickered before them, showing a new reality. The Zarkan Empire was crippled. The Galactic Council was weak. The smaller factions were now afraid to act. Carter folded his arms. "The question is, do we interfere?" A general scoffed. "We already did. That's why they're terrified." "But we didn't take control," Carter replied. "We left them a choice." And that was the real difference between humanity and the Zarkan Empire. They didn't need to rule with an iron fist. They didn't need to invade planets or force others to kneel. Because now, the galaxy policed itself out of fear of them. One admiral leaned forward, his voice calm but firm. "Then the best course of action is to let them fear." Carter smirked. "Exactly. The unseen threat." In the months that followed, humanity's strategy became clear. They never issued demands, but whenever an alien warlord attempted to seize power, they mysteriously vanished. They never declared control, but whenever a rogue fleet tried to attack a weaker world, human ships appeared, and the aggressors were never seen again. They never spoke of war, but the galaxy never forgot what they were capable of. The fear of human retaliation was stronger than any empire's rule. And so, without a single shot fired, humanity shaped the future of the galaxy from the shadows. The final warning. 1 year after the fall of the Empire, an anonymous transmission was sent to every major faction in the galaxy. No sender, no source, just a single sentence. There will be no second warning. It was not a threat. It was not a demand. It was a reminder. The galaxy had changed. The balance of power was rewritten. And every world, every leader, every warlord knew one undeniable truth. You do not provoke humanity. The rising storm. The galaxy had settled into a new order. No official treaties had been signed. No declarations had been made. But every species, every government, every warlord understood the silent truth. Humanity ruled from the shadows. They did not conquer. They did not expand. They did not demand tribute. But the fear of them alone was enough to keep the peace, until one foolish warlord decided to test them. A spark in the darkness, on the fringes of known space, in the lawless sectors where criminals and exiles thrived, a new force was rising. His name was Dregnok the Unchained, a former general of the Zarkan Empire. He had fled before the final battle, escaping with his own fleet of mercenaries and rogue warships. For the past year, he had watched as the galaxy trembled in fear of humanity, and he hated it. The mighty Zarkan Empire, he spat, pacing in front of his war council, brought to its knees by a species that barely left its own solar system. His officers remained silent. They had heard this rant before. But this time, Dregnok had a plan. Humanity is powerful, yes, he admitted, his reptilian claws tapping against the metal table. But they have one weakness. The room stirred. His second in command, a scared warrior named Vakros, frowned. A weakness, he echoed. They wiped out the Imperial fleet without effort. What weakness could they possibly have? Dregnok leaned forward, his sharp teeth glinting in the dim light. They fight like predators. They strike from the shadows. But what happens when the prey refuses to run? Silence. Then, slowly, his officers began to understand. They fight in secret, Vakros said, because they don't want an open war. Dregnok grinned. Exactly. His plan was simple. Force humanity into the open. Make them show their true numbers. Make them reveal their limits. Because if there was one thing Dregnok believed, it was this. No empire is truly invincible, and he was going to prove it. The attack on the outer colonies. The first human colony to fall was Nova Helios 3, a small research outpost on the edge of Terran space. Dreadnought's fleet arrived without warning, blasting through the colony's defenses in minutes. The humans put up a fight, but they were outnumbered 10-1. Dreadnought's forces took no prisoners. They wanted humanity to respond. And they did. Hours later, a single Terran warship arrived. Not a fleet, not an armada, just one ship. Dreadnought laughed when he saw it. This is all they send. The ship broadcast a message. Leave now, and this ends here. Dreadnought sneered and gave the order to open fire. The ship vanished in a flash of light, dodging every attack. It reappeared behind his fleet, moving faster than anything Dreadnought had ever seen. And then, in one single strike, the entire left flank of his fleet was gone. Not damaged, not disabled. Gone. Dreadnought's confidence shattered. Impossible, he whispered. But it was happening. One ship, just one, and it was tearing through his entire armada like a knife through paper. The silent war begins. Dreadnought barely escaped. His flagship, heavily damaged, fled into deep space. But the message was clear. Humanity would not be provoked. The news spread quickly. Other warlords, pirates, and rogue factions who had considered challenging humanity suddenly reconsidered. Because if one ship could do that, what could an entire fleet do? But Dreadnought was not finished. He was humiliated. He was angry. And now he wanted revenge. In a dark, hidden system, he sent out a message. A call to the most dangerous enemies of humanity. I will not run. I will not hide. I will fight them in the open. And I will show the galaxy that the humans are not gods. And somewhere, deep in the void, humanity washed. They had crushed an empire. They had rewritten the rules of war. But they knew one thing for certain. The war was not over. It was only just beginning. The gathering storm. Dreadnought the Unchained was not finished. He had suffered a humiliating defeat at the hands of a single human warship, and the galaxy had seen it happen. His reputation, once built on fear, had been reduced to mockery. But Dreadnought was no fool. He knew that the humans had a weakness, one that no species, no empire, no power in the galaxy had ever dared to exploit. They were still just one species. They had no vast empire, no sprawling colonies across 1,000 worlds, no history of galactic dominance. And now, Dreadnought had a plan to expose them. The War Council of Exiles. Deep in the uncharted sectors of the galaxy, Dreadnought gathered the most dangerous enemies of humanity. The warlords of fallen empires, the remnants of rogue fleets, the mercenaries who had no home, no honor, and no fear of death. In a hidden asteroid base, they assembled in secret. Dreadnought stood before them, his scared face twisted with determination. The humans are not gods, he declared, his voice echoing through the chamber. The others listened. They fight from the shadows because they fear open war, he continued. They hide because they know they are few. A reptilian mercenary captain snarled. They destroyed the Zarkan Empire in a single battle. Dreadnought's claws scraped against the metal floor. And what did they take? Silence. Their ships vanished after the war, Dreadnought growled. They didn't expand. They didn't seize territory. They didn't rule ***, because they can't. Now the others were listening. We are not fighting an empire. We are fighting a species, and a species can be broken. The plan: strike where it hurts. Dreadnought had studied human history. He had watched their wars, their strategies, their victories, and he had learned something. Humans were ruthless in war, but they had one fatal flaw. They protected their own. They could destroy entire fleets, devastate entire armies, but they would always shield their civilians, defend their homeworld, protect their weak. Dreadnought's grin widened. So we won't fight them in space. We won't attack their warships. We won't play by their rules. A cybernetic warlord clicked its metallic fingers. Then where do we strike? Dreadnought's voice was cold. Earth. The room fell silent. Even the most hardened warlords hesitated. No one had ever dared to attack Earth. But Dregnok was not afraid. "The humans are feared because they are untouchable," he said, his yellow eyes gleaming. "I intend to prove they are not." He pulled up a hologram, a detailed map of the Sol system. "Our spies have been tracking their movements. We have identified weak points in their defense grid. Their outer colonies are heavily protected, but their home system has gaps." A skeletal warlord chuckled. "Are you saying Earth is vulnerable?" Dregnok's grin was filled with malice. "I'm saying we're going to remind the humans what fear feels like." The warlords nodded. The plan was set. The largest fleet of pirates, mercenaries, and exiles in galactic history was coming for Earth. And this time, they wouldn't stop until they had broken humanity. Earth's watchful eyes. Far across the galaxy, deep in the United Terran Command, alarms flashed red. A young officer stood before a massive screen, her hands shaking. "Sir," she whispered, "we have a problem." Captain Elias Carter turned from the observation deck. His face, always calm, became stone cold as he read the data. A fleet, larger than any humanity had ever faced, was moving toward Sol. Not an invasion. Not a border skirmish. A direct assault on Earth. The officer swallowed. "They're coming for us." The room fell into silence. Then, Carter gave the order. "Alert all Terran defenses. Prepare the fleet." He turned to his second-in-command. "And send the message." The officer hesitated. "The message, sir." Carter's gaze hardened. The warning. The message was sent. A single broadcast spread across every known system in the galaxy. It was short, it was simple, and it sent chills through every world that heard it. "To those who would bring more to Earth, we are coming for you. The battle approaches." The galaxy held its breath. Would this be the moment humanity finally revealed its full strength? Would the warlords succeed where the Empire had failed? Or was this attack exactly what humanity had been waiting for? One thing was certain. The storm was here. And when it passed, only one side would remain. The final stand. The galaxy watched in silence. For years, humanity had ruled from the shadows, its strength undeniable, but never fully revealed. They had crushed an empire, rewritten the rules of war, and held the entire galactic order in their grip, without ever declaring themselves rulers. And now, the enemy was coming to their doorstep. A massive fleet, larger than any seen before, descended upon Sol. The warlords, mercenaries, and exiles who had gathered under Dregnok the Unchained believed they had found humanity's weakness. They were wrong, because humanity was waiting. The invasion of Sol begins. Dregnok stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Blood Scourge, watching as his fleet closed in on the Terran home system. Earth sat in the distance, a blue and green jewel against the void, untouched, unscarred. It would not stay that way for long. His fleet consisted of over 10,000 warships, a force that could have crushed the Zarkan Empire in days. "Begin the assault," he ordered, his voice filled with cold certainty. The first wave surged forward. 1,000 ships accelerated toward Earth's outer defenses, weapons locked and ready. But something was wrong. There were no human ships in sight, no defense fleets, no battle formations, no resistance. Dregnok frowned. "Where are they?" The lead warships entered Mars orbit, and that's when the trap was sprung. The void strikes back. Without warning, the stars themselves came alive. Human warships, hidden within the asteroid belt, behind planetary shadows, and in deep space folds, erupted from nothingness. Thousands of Terran vessels blinked into existence, faster than any alien fleet had ever moved. They were not just waiting, they had positioned themselves perfectly. Before Dregnok's fleet could react, the slaughter began. Terran battleships fired weapons that the galaxy had never seen before. Not plasma, not lasers, not conventional energy blasts. Reality itself bent under their firepower. Ships collapsed into singularities, crushed under their own mass. Enemy vessels were ripped apart from the inside, their hulls folding like paper. Some ships disintegrated before their crews even had time to scream. Dreadnought's warlords, once confident, now panicked. Their weapons, what are they? Asterisk, 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 our shields aren't holding. It's like they're rewriting physics. Dreadnought's claws dug into the command panel. His plan was falling apart in seconds. But he wasn't ready to surrender. Not yet. Earth unleashes its wrath. A second Terran fleet arrived, emerging from Neptune's orbit. Unlike the first wave, which struck from stealth, these ships moved openly, not in scattered formations, but in an unstoppable wave of destruction. Humanity was no longer fighting from the shadows. They were showing their full strength. Dreadnought realized the horrifying truth. They had never been afraid of war. They had just been waiting for the right moment. And now, the moment had come. A deep, rumbling voice echoed through the fleet's comm channels. It was Captain Elias Carter. His words were simple, but they shattered what remained of Dreadnought's confidence. You wanted us to fight in the open. Now you'll see what that truly means. And then, Earth's counterattack began. The fall of Dreadnought. Dreadnought's forces fought with everything they had. They fired their most powerful weapons. They launched thousands of fighters. They tried to adapt, tried to break through the human formations. But it was too late. Humanity had mastered war beyond what anyone could comprehend. For every enemy ship destroyed, 100 more were systematically eliminated in return. It wasn't just a battle. It was an execution. And then, as Dreadnought's fleet collapsed, the final blow came. A single Terran dreadnought locked onto the blood scourge. Dreadnought stared at the screen, his yellow eyes wide with rage and disbelief. Fire everything, he roared. His weapons fired, but they never hit their target. The dreadnought didn't dodge, it didn't even move, because it didn't need to. A single pulse of energy erupted from the Terran vessel, and Dreadnought's flagship simply vanished. Not exploded, not destroyed. Vanished, as if it had never existed. The end of the war. The rest of the enemy fleet collapsed within minutes. Some tried to flee. Some tried to surrender. Most simply died in silence. By the end of the battle, not a single enemy warship remained in Sol. The invasion had failed. Dreadnought was gone, and humanity had won. Again. But this time, they had done more than just win. They had shown the galaxy what they truly were. No longer just a species. No longer just a hidden power. No longer just a whispered warning. They were the apex. The final message to the galaxy. As the wreckage of the battle drifted in space, one final transmission was sent across every known system. A message from Earth to the galaxy. The face of Captain Elias Carter appeared on every screen. His voice was calm, controlled, absolute. We did not seek war. We did not ask for this fight. But let this be the last lesson you ever need. He leaned forward. Humanity does not start wars. We end them. The message cut out, and the galaxy never doubted them again.